On a red alert.
Okay, so I have a whiz banger of who's behind the floating hand, and it's not the Borg Queen. But let's talk. Finale. Picard.
Give me your crazy idea.
Season 3. Spoiler Central.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Do not listen unless you have completely caught up to every episode besides episode 10. We are 2.5 hours out from the Eastern premiere of Star Trek Picard. I'm here with Renzo. I'm Dag. You know the drill. I don't want to share what mine is because it's insanely cool.
I have bad news. It's not 2.5 hours. If it was just 2.5 hours, I could guarantee I'd stay up for it.
What time's the premiere for you?
3 a.m.
Oh, okay. So Pacific time, midnight then. That's nice of them. Well, I have to wake up arse early tomorrow. I still won't be able to watch it. We're walking now at 6 a.m.
Walking's fun.
It's really good. We're getting up and doing like 2 miles a morning.
That sounds exhausting.
No. It's fantastic. But I'm a morning person and you're like the night owl, so.
Yeah, I'm very tempted to just stay up tonight, but I have an early meeting with a customer tomorrow, so
that's okay.
I'm going to put myself to sleep.
That's okay. We can talk about it when we get there. All right, so what do we know? We know now that the Borg and the Changelings have colluded to assimilate the fleet.
At least this sect of changelings have.
Yes. This sect that appears to be POWs left over from the Dominion War who were experimented on by Federation scientists, Section 31. Who cares? It was us. Like, if your worst people are going to represent you, then it's you.
Yeah, I can't blame Vadic and her ilk for hating the Federation as a whole.
Yeah.
Definitely can't blame them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is one of those situations like, we brought this on ourselves. Just like we did with the synth ban. Just like we did with trying to kill a Borg Queen in a Confederate universe.
I mean, these things keep happening. They keep happening.
There was a nice time when the plot wasn't driven by characters. We're going to visit a planet that's severely fucked up. Let's make some political commentary about this and warp away. Have a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that planet that we removed the drugs from.
Well, we found out what happened to them.
This is true, but we had to wait 30 years.
Yeah.
All right. So, Vadic is gone, shattered to the wind.
A fitting ending, in my opinion. I think that was a good way to do it.
Great callback using the Borg sort of we're gonna assimilate you without you knowing it plot from Voyager. That was pretty cool. I had suspected that Picard's Irumodic syndrome was not a disease since Picard season 1 when I wrote my alternate ending that's why he's Locutus, because he speaks for us to these extra galactic Synthulu. That's what we called them at the time. The robots from beyond the galaxy.
Tentacles.
Yeah. But all right, so now we have Locutus, who is the speaker, and Vox, who is the voice, and that is why and how Jack can take over people and move them.
Can we just stop and talk about how dumb Jack Crusher is?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, because that was like the one part of the episode I was like, this is so dumb. No, this is the dumbest. Who allowed this? Like, I get it. He can stop people under 25 from stopping him, so the 2 security guards, sure. But did nobody think to just, like, keep the door shut on the shuttle bay? Or grab him with a tractor beam? Or anything? Like,
that's not really Jack's fault. That's the rest of the ship's fault.
Oh no, I think that story beat is what's dumb. Jack Crusher himself running off and thinking he can overpower the Borg Queen is extra dumb.
Yes.
But like as a story beat, I just find this little bit to be pretty beef worthy.
I am highly dissatisfied with the trope of kid finds out they're special in all the wrong ways and decides to destroy the universe. Soji thought she was special in all the wrong ways and decided to destroy the universe.
Yeah, we got the burn from one of those too.
Cal was the one to point that out to me.
He made a good point.
The burn, like little kid crying, destroys the universe.
Yeah. I mean, I do appreciate that this spin on assimilation is different, right? It harkens back to Unimatrix Zero episode, where the Borg Queen was like, we don't need to physically assimilate them necessarily. We can just get their brains, and that's what we really need. Cool, I get that. This idea of like doing it through biological transceivers, also pretty cool. That all tracks. That seems like something that's at least feasible at Borg levels of tech. The whole this is an unintended consequence of the assimilation of Locutus also tracks for me, right? Like, they didn't plan for this. This is just something that they are taking advantage of. Yeah. I think the fandom is a little crazy about this whole, like, how did the Borg Queen plan this 40 years in advance? I don't think she did. I don't think they did. I think this is just like a lucky thing, right? Like, if Picard ever had kids, he would pass on that gene, and it just so happens that, well, it developed in a way that is very beneficial to them.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how the changelings got in touch with the Borg in the first place. I mean, yes, we can understand why you'd have beef, and I love the way that the Borg Queen aligns their goals. Like, you know, you two will experience the harmony instead of living like pieces of broken glass. And I was like, that's a great metaphor. I love that.
Yeah, because they can't rejoin the Great Link, it seems, because of their fleshiness.
Yep. Yep. So I fully expect everyone to go wild when we actually see the Borg Queen's face and it's Ardra in disguise.
You want the devil to do all of this, then?
Yes.
Okay.
But honestly,
what if it's Janeway and she'd already been assimilated before all this?
Hey, I mean,
That's why
what
we
if?
Haven't seen her.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm okay with that. She was assimilated. She too could have carried this little Trojan horse code thing. It's interesting. The Daystrom facility where they got new data and had Kirk there. Obviously, that foreshadowed the recovery of the saucer section of the Enterprise D from Viridian 3 because they went back for Kirk. They might as well go back for the shuttle or the saucer.
Corrective. You can't just leave your junk lying around. Starfleet
Right.
has a great history of technology hygiene, as Saru put it.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
But another thing that you see in the Daystrom place is the remnants of the Borg Queen from First Contact. And I'm thinking, like, what if the person that's talking to Jack is just those remnants? It's not even like Alice Cridge's body. It's just the head with the spine plugged into the ship. That's why it sounds like Alice.
Yeah.
Totally okay with
that
this.
Works. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see no reason why at least the consciousness of the Borg Queen couldn't survive without the biological components.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not the personality, some of the ambition of it, but the knowledge of it certainly could.
The tactileness of it would be a memory, much like when Bareil got his brain replaced with positronics.
Yeah.
And he was like, it doesn't feel like a touch, it feels like the memory of a touch.
That's a good analysis for it, I think.
Yeah.
I also think that the scene where we got to see Shelby in Ep 8 or in the previous episode was amazing. I did not see Shelby coming. I did not expect it. I knew that we were going to get some kind of cameo for somebody playing Admiral, somebody in charge of the Enterprise F, but I didn't expect Shelby, and that was great. So we finally get to see Shelby in charge of an Enterprise.
Yep, that was really cool. Even though the F's supposed to be early decommissioning, which is just timely enough for them to reinstate a certain Galaxy-class starship as the new flagship again.
Nah. So I mean, since they stole they're using the design from Star Trek Online, and the Star Trek Online Enterprise has a good bit of history to it, right? Like, we know that it did go through several long refits, and it got decommissioned at some point and went through a refit to the Yorktown subtype. I suspect that's kind of what this is alluding to, because when we see it in use in 2405 or whatever, when the game setting starts, all the way through 2409, it looks different than it does at this point.
Okay.
So it's got some upgrades. So that seems fine.
Sure.
it's cool to just see things from Star Trek Online go into the main canon. And I also discovered something this week when going through some of the materials that were published for the first episode of the season. Remember when the Ilios 7 was attacked by 3 smaller ships? They were red ships.
In the first season?
In the first episode of this season.
Oh.
Crusher ship. The medical. Yeah. So those 3 ships, and I knew it at the time, they looked like the Elachi ships from Star Trek Online, right? But I was like, they just borrowed the design, they recolored them, they're not going to actually bring in the Elachi this way. No, I was wrong. So in the like ancillary stuff that David Blass was put out, he wrote up like this whole story about how they were bought off the black market after having been abandoned by Elachi crew.
Wow.
Neat. That's something straight out of Star Trek Online. And those are the same enemies as Silent Enemy from Enterprise, the shroom head dudes.
Oh, okay.
Shroomies.
Okay.
Same race. So that's where that. Yeah, I'm in love with this whole like interaction between different Star Trek IPs. Just like, I like that. Gimme.
I appreciate that as well. Well, we finally got to see, after 29 years, the Enterprise D warp back into action. Carpet?
Big fat one?
The fat one.
Honestly, I got a little teary-eyed at it. It was great. It was a really well-shot scene. Seeing him on the bridge was lovely. The carpeting, I said I love the carpeting just before Picard commented the same thing. So yeah,
the lighting is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think what really moved me was when they turned on the bridge and all the systems came to life. Like, this wasn't 1987 where you're flipping the back of a screen to do light all at once. These are digital graphics that the ship is, and that was really, really cool. And I'm so glad that I hope that they retcon, that's just a retcon permanently now. They only had 2 days to shoot on that set.
I did, and it's crazy that they got so much done, even just for this scene. That with the little that we saw in this episode, like, it's incredible. Because I can imagine like everybody just walking onto the set for their first shot and just being like, I can't keep it in for a little while, and they had to waste some time with everybody getting their emotions under control.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this: do you have any theories as to why the Jurati Borg Queen hasn't kind of like done anything?
Because season 2 has a firewall against season 3?
I think that's a bad explanation.
It's the real explanation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that should happen.
Though that crazy shit with the fake Borg that happened last year or whatever he said.
Yeah. But then, Crusher was like, no one's seen the Borg in a decade.
A real Borg.
Well, I'll stretch it that far too, but yeah, there was that. Why hasn't Jurati Borg showed up?
Maybe she will.
Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she didn't know until the signal pinged on her radar, and she's like, "Oh." So maybe she'll warp in with allies at the end, and we'll finally get the Picard allies coming to help one ship. We'll have our own Star Trek Endgame Portals moment.
Wait, so you mean you like the ending for Prodigy when all the other races decide to help out during the living construct controlling the entire fleet again?
Yeah, exactly that. Didn't we learn from last season not to network the fleet the way that we just networked the fleet? Didn't we learn from Prodigy not to network the fleet the way that we just networked the fleet?
They really, really need to make Battlestar Galactica like required watching at Starfleet Academy.
And that's what I'm thinking is going to happen in Strange New Worlds, and why the Enterprise gets like a retro remodel into Kirk's Enterprise, because it's like, oh, networking bad. We have to remodel now to shield all of our systems so that they can't be hacked that way, and that's why they went from less Ferrari to diesel pickup truck.
Taking a slight detour out of Picard land into Strange New Worlds, did you see the trailer today?
I want the ship to go now.
But that was very Spock. But the Klingon?
It looks normal. Looks CG to me.
It looks CG, but it looks TNG.
Yeah.
When we should be prepping or getting closer to TOS Klingons.
Well, I saw a really cool comment that was like, what if we see Klingons in this weird transition of ones who weren't affected by the augment virus, ones who are, and then the Discovery ones. And maybe we'll learn some throwaway line where like the Discovery ones continued experimenting with augmentation and eugenics, and that's why they look like lobsters, versus the standard appearance versus the human appearance of, you know, some of those guys who inherited those genes. And also there's also cosmetic, you know, surgery.
Sure. I mean, I'm just saying, I would love it if they gave us like a throwaway line that said, oh, the ones with the weird head, those are the ones that went too far with the augmentation stuff. Something like that. I would be all down. Just give us something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a cool trailer generally.
Yeah, no, it was great.
So
Seeing La'an hot for Kirk.
Yeah. I mean,
are they in the past again at the end of that trailer?
It looked like it.
Because he's like, I'm from space. I'm like, direct callback to Star Trek 4 right there.
I mean, I thought so, but he's supposed to go, I just work in space. I'm from Iowa. Or
right, but it's still a direct callback. It's fine.
Yes, definitely. No, definitely callback. So let's see. What kind of predictions do you think we're going to have? Like, what predictions do you have for the finale in Picard?
All right, so maybe we could like grade predictions on like this would be badass, and this could happen, but I would be like about it.
We have two axes here, though, right? There's likelihood axes, and then there's like-dislike axis.
Well, I don't have dislike. I just have like meets expectations, exceeds expectations. Okay. I don't want to go in a dislike just because I don't want to hate Star Trek. Like, I spend too much time on Reddit watching people be like, this should have happened and that should have happened. And I'm like, guys, it's a show. Just enjoy it.
I'm there with you. I also hate that Trek beard mentality of like, oh, it's not what I wanted. It sucks. Right.
Go write your own freaking fan cameo, you uncreative, pedantic patak.
Yeah.
Sorry. Ignore my German Klingon there.
Okay, so tell me some of your predictions then. What have you got?
All right. I still think this portals thing is going to happen. I think that Picard's allies are going to show up. And I think the Borg signal may have heralded the call. I think if the Jurati Borg show up, they're going to be on the line with that. It would be really great to see like the Klingons show up after all the help that Picard has given the Klingon Empire. It would be awesome if Picard's girlfriend had gone back to the Romulan Empire and said, look, remember? And then so the Romulans show up. So you've got a combined Klingon Borg Romulan fleet led by the Enterprise D against the Federation fleet in Earth orbit.
I got a twist for you, though.
That would be like my A grade want.
I love all that, and I've got one added possible for you.
Badgie.
Better.
Okay,
better.
Go.
Cisco shows up with some Dominion ships at his back because they realize that if the Federation gets assimilated and takes over the Alpha Quadrant and Beta Quadrant by the Borg, they're toast.
Well, his ship is, you know, his pimp hand is back at Daystrom's, or not Daystrom, but the Fleet Museum, so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying he shows up in the Defiant, though that would be nice.
Well,
but
we know Janeway's going to show up. They've name-dropped her so much.
We know Tuvok is going to show up. I don't know if we're going to see Janeway.
Janeway and Tuvok come as a pair. You know this. Like,
fair.
At the very beginning, Janeway sponsored Seven's stuff. They've name-dropped her at least 2 or 3 times since then. It's so ready to happen that Janeway is like, yeah, I knew about this from day one. Thanks for being a decoy while I brought the cavalry.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned that they hadn't been able to get in touch with her, so maybe she's just been off assembling a coalition.
Yeah.
Or Garrick shows up with some
oh
Cardassian
gosh
ships as well.
Oh my gosh.
Give back for the Federation rebuilding of Cardassia.
Can we get 82-year-old Andy Robinson up in here, please?
Rom shows up with a Ferengi to save the people of Earth.
2 DS9. This is a TNG show.
That's fair. You're right. But I mean, they did the Dominion as some of the big bads in this.
They did, and they did, and then they whoop, and then they, and then the nene. I wouldn't I wouldn't begrudge that end. It's just that would make this last hour of television probably the most expensive hour of television produced in the history of television. To get all of those people back in the role with the makeup, with the ships, with the special effects, yeah, it would just be super expensive. And they're already aiming for, 80 minutes on this episode?
Yeah, I'd heard it was close to 90, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's definitely a reason for me to take my laptop to work tomorrow and hide in a soundproof cubby and pretend to do something for an hour and a half.
Other cool thing that I'm really hoping we see, though I really love the new space dock in orbit of Earth. I think it's the most badass looking Starfleet station we've ever been shown. Awesome. I really want to see them blow it up. I want to see it as like a drawn out long fight. I don't want it to just be like exploded in the background. I want them to show it to us. Show the misery of actually phasering the bitch down, right? Like, I think it'd be awesome.
You mean like when Lower Decks, the Texas ships did it?
Yeah.
So I just want to say for the audience, like the space dock around Earth now is not the same as Starbase 1. Starbase 1 is now the Fleet Museum. This is a new starbase, so we're just making clear that there's a backup starbase ready to get moved back when this one gets blown up. And a whole new fleet ready to launch, because these ships can be restored now.
Museum ships. Leave them in a museum. It belongs in a museum.
Yeah, a museum ship with a cloaking device.
That shouldn't really work too well, but...
And why did they take the bounties and not the Defiance?
Maybe the Romulans reclaimed it at the end of the Dominion War?
Meh.
They could have taken Kronos 1s.
We have a lot of ships with cloaking devices here, huh?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be weird if, like, I don't know, Russia was, like, hanging Air Force One in a grand square somewhere? We'd be like...
So, if you go to the Smithsonian down in DC, right, they actually have several old Soviet ICBMs, like, on display, like, real ones. They were in silos at one point in their history. They're demilitarized, so there's no nuke inside of them, but the thing is real, and they're on loan. And we loaned them parts of the Apollo program or a Saturn portion or something, and they show theirs off in their museums. So these sorts of trades, I think, are pretty reasonable. Like, people were freaking out when they saw Kronos 1 in the Fleet Museum, and I was like, no, they're allies. They're gonna trade ships for museum purposes for like a year or 20, and then swap back, right? Like, it's not that crazy to me.
Yeah, that's
like
fair.
Maybe the Sutherland is over in the Kronos Museum of Ships, right? Because it's the one that disrupted the Romulan invasion of Klingon space or something. Like, that was the trade. That
they have like a statue of Data.
Yeah. I'm sure Klingon museums are pretty badass, though.
Okay. So we know that the Enterprise is unlinked to the rest of the fleet, so it can't be Cyloned. That's going to be my term. It can't be Cyloned. But we also know that the Enterprise transporters are clean too. And that ship was an evacuation ship, and we never actually got to see that feature. So wouldn't it be great if we could be like, Mr. LaForge, activate all transporters, beam the command crews of those vessels over here and back, and cleanse their brains of whatever damned thing the Borg did to them.
I mean, we've seen transporters used as healing tools many times in the past, right? Reversing Pulaski's aging in season 2 of TNG. They do it a few other places, but that's probably the most significant one, I think. I think that's a good idea, though I don't know how feasible it is when these ships have their shields up, so it'd be a matter of like getting all of their shields down and then time, because you're going to need time to beam them all over, and that means the Enterprise D's shields are going to be down, so somehow you've got to disable the other ships in the Starfleet that are in orbit and then beam their crews off. I don't know.
You've got the Borg show up. You've got this backup fleet.
Yeah.
This backup fleet shows up, and Janeway's like, Tuvok, load all of the thing of things that drop their shields. And then Tuvok just tells her what that is. The prefix code, Admiral?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I feel like essentially this whole fleet formation thing works on the prefix code too. Like, that's what it seems like, because they're locking out the ship's crew from its own ship, which is essentially what they did to Khan. So
yeah. So we have a Borg ship that can communicate through Borg stuff through Jurati. We have Janeway, who has all the Federation knowledge she needs. We have a Romulan fleet and a Klingon fleet, and optimally a Ferengi fleet and a Cardassian fleet. Cisco flashes in with a few hundred Dominion ships, and we have the greatest space battle that has ever happened of all time. It will require tremendous biofilter cleanup afterwards.
Just imagine, though, right? Like, we get this devastating scene at the beginning of the episode where the formation fleet of assimilated people
It's annihilating,
destroys the big-ass space dock in orbit of Earth, right? They start firing on other satellites in orbit of Earth. Maybe they hit a planetary shield and start bringing it down. The crew of the Enterprise D warps there. They start trying to figure out something, and then they get, like, this massive rescue operation shows up. We get this massive space battle with dozens or hundreds of ships just... Yeah, exactly. It would be, like, a good way to do the copy-paste fleet from the end of Season 1.
Yeah, we get those guys back.
I mean, they're somehow not here.
What if it's Janeway's fleet? What if she's on tour?
Yeah.
And she shows up in the freaking Dauntless.
Oh,
Sorry, Captain. I was in the Delta Quadrant. We left like 20 minutes ago.
Sorry for the delay.
Yeah. And then you see like Ensign Dahl or like Captain Dahl with her or something.
Lieutenant, let's not be aggressive here.
It's been 20 years. He's not Ensign
20?
Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prodigy is 2480 or 2381, so it's been 20 years.
It is 20.
Granted, I mean, you know, depending on where he wants to be comfortable in his, you know, role, it would be a really cool toss to Prodigy to see that's Dahl's endgame. So now, how are we tantalized into seeing how he gets there?
I haven't been able to find it myself, but it was mentioned in one of the subreddits. People who were looking through the pictures of all the ships in formation over Earth said that they managed to find a couple ships out of lower decks as well. They said it wasn't the Cerritos, but it was one of the Parliament class ships, like the Vancouver that we saw, which I think would fit very well, but I haven't been able to find it. So I really like the fact that they've got this variety in the fleet in orbit of Earth for this.
Yeah, well, you remember we interviewed Burrito Truck a while back? Yeah, he posted a complete list of every ship that was there with their class in his post on Star Trek. So it's the Canon Connections post in Star Trek, the latest one.
Yeah, I mean, we see tons of Akiras, Lunas, Sovereigns, right? Like, there is a good variety in that fleet.
There's even a Gagarin class, which is like...
Well, the updated Gagarin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
one
the
from
one that
STO.
comes from STO.
Okay. I was like, that's 150 years old.
Yeah, there's a few of the inquiries, too, the ones from the copy-paste fleet, but it's just... There were 300 of those or something at the copy-paste fleet battle, so...
What'd you think of the formation that it mimicked Borg writing?
I did like it.
Yeah.
I did think it was pretty neat. It made sense to put like your heaviest military asset in the center of each of those little pods as well. It looked good. Excessively tight as far as space is concerned, but it looked really cool. So it makes sense for the show to show it.
Fun fact that everybody on the Titan who was affected by the Borg thing, all of them are 28 or older.
The actors?
Yeah.
That's
28,
hilarious.
and only one of them is in their 20s. The rest of them are 30-something.
That's really funny.
I love that.
I guess that's just typical Hollywood, though, right? Like, they can never cast people the age they actually are.
I suppose, you know, but...
How many 30-year-olds have we seen in high school settings because of Hollywood?
Just watch Saved by the Bell.
Just watch Glee.
90210.
Yeah.
Yeah.
21 Jump Street.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the other one? Even Buffy the Vampire Slayer was bad about this, and
yeah.
Vampire Diaries was awful for all these things. Yeah, Hollywood cannot cast teenagers to be in high school.
So we have our prediction for what we want to see on Earth. What's Jack's story? How does it end?
So that's where I think Picard is going to end up going, right? Like, I think he's going to go to Earth, realize that there's basically nothing he can do to stop this because it's 100 ships against an ancient D. So he's going to go and be like, well, where is the signal coming from? From there, maybe he can find it. It didn't take Jack very long to get to wherever that Borg cube is hiding, even though I don't think it's just a cube. It looks bigger. It looks like it's like a unicomplex.
Yeah.
But he's going to follow that signal and try and find his son. It'll be a very heroic, like, I've got to save my baby kind of a moment. And that, I think, would actually work, right? Like, if you unplug Vox from this whole thing, then it might actually work. I don't think trying to beat that fleet militarily with our little alliance of the willing here is actually all that beneficial of an ending for the Federation.
Yeah, I still think that it would be poetic if maybe Girardi's Borg fleet does show up, and the only way Picard can get there in time is to reassimilate and attack the Queen from within.
Oh, man.
And
That's
this time,
tough.
he's Locutus, and he's speaking for us and not the Borg.
That's actually a really cool idea, right? Like, add a second node of control, essentially, somebody to try and counterbalance the Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but what kind of situation does that put Seven of Nine in, though? Granted, she's still on the Titan, right? But Seven of Nine had to do the same thing when she took over the
cube.
Yeah, the wrecked cube, right? And she did not seem pleased about the whole prospect of it. And
Well,
I think that Picard is under a lot more strain from that than she would be.
they definitely have their own story to inform their reactions to that, but I would love a poetic ending to Locutus. Like I said earlier, when I rewrote Picard season 1 to make it so that, Picard, his Aromatic syndrome was actually a Borg implant that allowed him to communicate with synths, and with Seven in command of the Borg cube, she could route a signal through him to have him speak to the synths and say, hey, we're not ready for this. We understand that. But, give us a chance and we'll call you in a few hundred years, a few thousand years when we figure this out. And then they leave. And that is the ultimate poetry of Picard as Locutus and the vindication of why Q interfered in Picard's life in that way in the first place. Because if he hadn't, Galaxy would have been taken over. That's where I was going with my rewrite. So... we can still harness some of that.
You actually made me think of something neat, though, because I really hadn't thought about the fact that the Romulans had the cube for that long, right? Like, they had it for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. That gives them a lot of time to have studied Borg tech from there. Maybe Laris is the one who comes and shows up to save the day, based on stuff that the Romulans or not the Zapvash themselves, because they've been basically wiped out, but like the Tal Shiar and such brought information, and they're going to be able to be the ones that cancel out the Borg signal for a certain amount of time to give Picard his chance to do whatever he needs to do.
Maybe.
It'd be a great way to bring Laris back into this whole mess.
It would be a really great vindication for a character that keeps getting written off after the first episode.
Yeah.
We need more Irish Romulans. Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah!
Thank you.
Tuvix grumbled, so I think that's another hell yeah for you.
Okay, so we did we say what Jack's end game was here? Does he get to go on and be trusted again, or is he done?
I think if they manage to save him, if he survives the season, I think he'll go through the same transporter fixes your DNA thing that everybody else does, and then he just won't have that gene anymore.
Okay, I can see that. That's good. That's good.
Assuming he survives. I just don't know if they're going to do that. I hope they let him live. It'd be kind of brutal for Picard as a character to try and save his son, whom he just learned existed, whom he had ignored for a decade, just to see him die to the same villain that is his worst nemesis.
Why are we talking about David Marcus?
No. You don't want to repeat Khan again, too.
You just described.
Yeah, it's true. There are a lot of parallels.
No, Parallels is a season 7 episode.
But it's one of my favorite episodes of all time.
It is one of mine too. Okay, so ultimately, we don't really know the details about Jack, but we're saying that he comes out of this. Maybe he goes on to be in Legacy, which is a new project that was sort of bumped around.
Yeah, I mean, Terry Matalas has been talking about it, right? Like, he's mentioned the idea of doing a Legacies show, which I think is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Give us an anthology kind of show, follows some of our characters for a year, maybe expands on their background. I love it. This sounds great to me.
I'm supposed to say that Jack gets put in the naughty corner for a timeout, but I'm supposed to say it like Super Nanny, but I never watched Super Nanny, so I don't know how to say it that way.
Just do it like Anne Find from The Nanny instead.
You mean Fran Drescher?
Yes.
Oh, naughty corner.
No.
I'm being told that was incorrect. Now I have to go to the naughty corner for a timeout.
The naughty corner.
Naughty corner? Oh, okay.
Oh,
so
no, that's very British.
not
British.
not Jersey, British. Got it. Just like Jack's fake accent. All right. It's not that. I don't think it's fake. He does a whole bunch of British stuff. He was an Outlander. He was in freaking Aragon. He was Aragon. In Aragon. Did you ever see that?
It explains a few
I
things.
read the book. I think I watched the first movie and was very disappointed with it.
Well. It has.
Here's why. There's a description in the book, in the first one, of the dwarf city that lives inside of an excavated mountain, and there's like a diamond at the very top of it that's where light shines through. I can't remember the name of the city, but the description of it was so beautiful. I thought it was one of the coolest like fantasy descriptions for a dwarven settlement ever, and then they just didn't do it in the movie.
They did you wrong.
I was mad.
Did you wrong. That's like going to Lord of the Rings 2 Towers and there's no towers. It's just, why does Saruman live in a hole in a hill? What's going on here? All right, so Alice Borg, done, right? Like Dunzo, dead, destroyed, annihilated, end of game.
Yeah, but does that mean the end of the collective, or is it just another reprieve?
I think
it
it's
would be just another reprieve.
I think it should just be another reprieve. I mean, there's a lot of hints saying that Janeway's destruction of that Unicomplex really fucked them over. And this could be part of that revenge and why Janeway comes back. And if you think about the number of episodes, like, off the top of your head, how many episodes did the Borg feature in TNG? Not appearances, complete episodes.
6?
Exactly 6.
Yeah.
Q-Who, Best of Both Worlds 1 and 2, I, Borg, Descent 1 and 2. And even in Descent 1 and 2, those are an offshoot.
Splinter.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how many episodes of Voyager did the Borg feature in? Best guess.
Probably close to 20.
26.
Okay.
How many episodes of Picard has a Borg drone featured in?
A drone? 0? I don't think any of them have actually drones.
Or an XB?
Oh, okay. Well, then a lot, because of the first season.
19 episodes of all 3 seasons have featured a Borg in one way or another. That is not 7 of 9.
Okay.
No. The Borg Queen destabilized that in season 2, but all of her mercenary guys too were basically Borg.
Basically.
There are a lot of drones that are featured in season 1 when they're attacking Narissa on the cube. But it's the artifact. That's what it was called, right?
The artifact,
Yeah. So
it's just a broken down old cube.
All right. So Starbase 2 in flames, ruined. The fleet, big old backup flying in from all corners of the galaxy. Best case scenario, Cisco, Janeway, a hologram of Archer, a CG motion capture of Spock. Everybody's in.
The EMH is there too.
Yeah,
a ship
just
with
get
photonic weapons.
Yep, exactly. They even mentioned like photonics on what's her name's ship, and never
they never went anywhere with that.
Never came back from that. I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna have some photonic life. That'd be great. Get the EMH up in here. Okay, so that's what happens there. Jack, whatever happens to him, he goes through hell. He comes back. He's clean on the other side. He gets to go to Legacy. This Borg Unicomplex annihilated. What happens to the Enterprise D and the 7 people aboard her?
They'll go back to retirement and live the rest of their lives.
Is that your happy case?
Yes, honestly, yes. I want Picard to go live a happy life with Laris.
Okay.
I think Crusher deserves to get some rest after what sounds like 20 years of hell trying to make up for the deficiencies of the Federation. Deanna and Riker want to move back to the city. Good. Go live on Beta Z. Have a nice life there with Kestra, right?
Also mention Kestra.
Yeah. it'd be great for them. Geordi clearly is loving being the administrator of the Fleet Museum, so that is perfect for him. Him and his girls, both of them, survive this whole mess, right? Data, maybe he gets to go to the Daystrom Institute for a different purpose. Maybe he's gonna go lead it, or maybe he'll go to Oxford and be the Daystrom Institute chair.
That would be cool. Just a little throwaway line. Yes, I've received an offer to be a dean at Oxford. Like, yes, you did it. The data in all good things was this data all along, and we didn't know.
Perfect. And then Worf, he seems to be enjoying being a subcontractor.
You know what would be great for me about Worf? At the end, Worf gets a call, and Alexander's thanking him for being such a great father.
God, I can't believe in that one line where he's like, Slayer of Gowron and doer of this and murderer of that.
House Roshenko.
Yeah.
Father of Alexander?
Maybe worth mentioning?
Parmakai of the warrior Jadzia Dax. Parmakai of the warrior Kalar.
Oh, you know what else would be really cool? If there was some sort of, mention of a memorial for Ro and for Shelby, something like that, for those that lost their life at the end of this whole thing. Granted, I'm sure there's many characters that we don't know that also die in this mess, but, for the characters that we do, some sort of, mention of, here's the memorial for those that died because of this whole mess.
Yeah, that would be a cool thing. We saw Tasha.
In a little hologram statue.
A lot of people who died on this ship, though. Oh, okay. Shaw. Does he come back?
I think he's dead. I don't think that they're trying to fake us out by not actually showing him die. I think he actually died. I'm really more concerned about what happens to Raffi and Seven when they stayed on the Titan, because that seems like a really bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, we know that nanoprobes could keep him alive, and then he would have to grapple with a new arc of identity as he realizes that he's got Borg tech that saved his life.
Yeah, I don't know if 7 of 9 would consider violating somebody's autonomy in that way at this point in her life. When she was still freshly disconnected, she might have been like, oh, he's dying? Let me save him with some nanoprobes. I don't think she's in that mind state anymore, even for somebody that she now grudgingly respects like Shaw.
Who was it? Was it 7 that gave Neelix nanoprobes when he lost his lungs or something like that?
No, the lung thing was when they had the hologram lungs. I don't remember, but it was definitely a Neelix thing.
Neelix died in an accident, and he
got reanimated. He didn't have any memories. He didn't see anything.
They've already touched on the ethics of reanimating somebody after they've died when their autonomy is kind of not cool with that. I would be okay with that. It would also be cool if Janeway was like, yeah, Tuvix came back and we killed him again.
Poor pupper. Poor pupper.
It's split into 2 dogs. You got 2 dogs now. It's great. 2 and Vix.
I don't know if I could handle that. But yeah,
it's just
how
2.
about something they could do that would disappoint you or leave you truly upset with the season?
I would truly upset would be me. I would be really pissed off if the status quo was restored at the end of the episode. For 30 years, well, let me track this in production time. Except for Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, and Lower Decks, the Star Trek shows have been full of we fucked around and we found out. But at the end of the season, everything's hunky-dory again because we solved that one mistake. And I'm really tired of media restoring the status quo to what it was. The Federation needs to get a grip and stop doing some of this shit. Stop networking your ships. Stop screwing around with, POWs. That's not cool. Yeah, I really think that the Federation needs to revisit its soul. And I think we need to see the groundwork for that at the end of this episode, where we don't get a status quo ending.
That's fair. I understand where you're coming from. I kind of disagree.
Okay.
I think that the concept of networking your fleet to some extent is a logical one. It's a natural evolution of having a combined arms military sort of thing, right? Ships should share information. Maybe not control one another or have one ship that controls 50 others, but they should be networked to the point where what that ship sees, I can target.
We already have that, though.
We have that now, I know.
No, I'm not even talking about we have that now. I mean, We all had that, like the Tachyon field in Redemption. They all knew what was going on there. All the ships were networked in the way that you described then.
Yeah, I don't think they ever really expanded upon it significantly, though, right? Like, we'd see scenes in Deep Space Nine where somebody has to say, send them our targeting information. It's like, are you kidding? Like, they don't just have it? Why?
I'm sure that there's somebody out there could think of a reason why it would be unsafe to send somebody targeting information, especially if, you're targeting the wrong ship. You're trying to trick someone into firing on a ship that isn't yours if you're targeting it. But
fair. But either way, I think that Starfleet has done some, the Federation as a whole has done some good reevaluation of some of its biases. Like, in Season 1, they reevaluated their biases against synthetics. Good. That's good. That was something that was stupid that they needed to get over. Season 2, they were reevaluating their biases against the Borg.
Yeah.
Good. That's something they need to get over, right? Just because you're enhanced cybernetically doesn't mean that you're inherently somebody evil, vile, or controllable. And now we've got Season 3, where both of those considerations now have to be looked at again, right? I'm hoping that Season 3 doesn't result in a backslide. I thought that the improvements into the ethos of the Federation from the first 2 seasons was good.
There's no way that Starfleet doesn't know about the other Borg.
The other Borg?
Jurati.
Jurati Borg? No, they know. They have to. There was a whole fleet of ships there.
Yeah.
They know.
Which means the Borg know.
True.
Huh. Something to think about.
So here's one point that I was kind of trying to figure out a way to make it make sense, but I'll just share what I'd gotten to.
Okay.
So we know that the Borg showed up, this Borg, the Delta Borg showed up in space here using a transwarp conduit, right?
Yeah.
Using the same kind of transwarp conduits that Janeway had disabled 20 years prior, right? Or 30
Well,
years
maybe
prior.
not all of them, but yeah.
No, but yeah, using the same kind of concept. That's why it was so fast, right? It's not like a transwarp drive, which still takes travel time. Cool. Maybe they managed to sneak in under where Jurati was looking. She's looking at a distance. She's looking outward. Here they snuck in inside of where she would be looking, so she didn't see them appear.
We have to really calibrate Jurati's senses here. She's a 25th century Confederate Borg with 300 years of being a 25th century Confederate Borg kind of perspective. Did those Borg have transwarp? Did they operate on the same frequencies? I mean, how much can she really sense from a collective that this Borg queen doesn't know anything about?
Well, remember how her ship even appeared, right? It was like a rip and tear into space that wasn't transwarp.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some ambiguity as to what kind of technology they share with the mainland Borg. That's a good point.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then the rest of my point was just once they got in under Jurati's radar, so to speak, right? They just made sure to stay under her radar until they took over Starfleet. Once they took over Starfleet, Jurati's probably in a tougher bind.
Sure.
That's the only thought I had there.
How quickly do you think they could do this, since it was like 2 years ago that we just purged a Romulan infiltration in Starfleet?
I mean, changelings are very good at their job.
Yeah.
Not taken very long at all.
Yep.
Especially motivated changelings, maybe a little psychotic changelings.
All right. Angry prosciutto.
Angry prosciutto, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So at some point around the power vacuum that was created when we kicked out O and her Romulan cohorts from the Zhat Vash, and then in all the bureaucracy and diplomacy that had to happen with outreach for the synths, because at the beginning of Picard S2 they went on that like synth goodwill tour to the same planet that Jack said had the really cool interconnected vines, strangely enough. Rattalan 4 or something like that. In that window of time would be a perfect opportunity for angry changelings to infiltrate and take up spots that were empty there.
Well, I guess the question I'm left lingering with on that one, right, is how many were there? Right? Like, Vadic makes it sound like there were only like less than a dozen of them in the test tubes that were experimented on, right? And her crew is certainly more than a dozen. And her crew seems to all be these kinds of changeling things as well.
Well, she said that she could link with a changeling and transfer the change.
That's true.
So she may have found other founders who either chose to leave the link or were locked away from the link. She may have found POWs that we didn't even know about. She may have found a hearty number of the 100 that were sent out ahead of time. So there is a not too difficult to imagine pool of changelings that she could have done out there. Now the question is, how many of those changelings are still on ships in this fleet? That was the big fear when Ro came over, was not to use the transporters because something was wrong with them, but she didn't know what. And then, the changelings that were with her beamed off and she was stuck on a shuttle. So there are definitely changelings on these other ships. They're not just done with the Shrike.
Yeah, it's definitely something more here, right? Like, maybe... Okay, so Conspiracy showed us that it didn't take very many Starfleet head of fleet admirals to be taken over to really cause a problem.
Right.
Like, the Bluegill seemed to have, 6 people, I think? So...
More like a dozen.
Even so.
A couple of admirals and everybody at a table.
Yeah. Even so, it's not a ton of people. So if she had, or if Vadic's group was 30 changelings deep, they could have definitely have made a huge problem for Starfleet, assuming they didn't learn their fucking lesson from the last time this happened, or from Leighton when this happened.
Yeah, it would have been great if somehow we'd had that Cardassian shape-changey inhibitor tool.
We don't know if it would have worked on them here.
We don't know. I mean,
they're angry prosciutto. They're totally different.
Yeah, but I mean, the way that tool was described, I mean, you could write it off with, well, it just doesn't work on them. But the way that tool was described is that it prevented a monoform from changing shape. Didn't seem to discriminate too much on who that monoform was. I don't know if it would work against a cameloid, because cameloids don't seem to shape change the same way. But, yeah, I think that kind of seals the deal on that. Anything else that you wanted to speculate about?
The only other thing that I think would make me really mad about this episode is that if it's something completely neat and tidy, everything ends up happy hunky-dory, everybody ends up super chill, nothing changes, the Federation doesn't learn its lesson. I agree with you. That's probably what would leave me upset. I do want Federation to grow from this. Be smarter about how you handle insider threats.
Yeah, I can see that. It would be cool if there's an after credits scene that leads into something.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I'm convinced there's going to be some type of endgame portals cavalry to the rescue scene. I do think we're going to get the opening scene is going to be the destruction of the space station. And I think Janeway's going to show up with part of a cavalry.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a good way to do the episode.
Cool. I like how the end credits had all the hints right there in front of us the whole time.
The whole time, yeah. Even small things like the Pop Goes the Weasel were right there in the credits, and you really had to try and figure out where it was coming from.
The Pop Goes the Weasel, the
DNA.
The signal from the DNA.
Yep. The cloaking device.
In Klingon with the language translator. Yeah.
And the audio cue for it was the Klingon cloaking device too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
Told us a lot about the season early on. We just didn't know.
And that's what I really love about that is producers. Yes, you have the internet, you've got thousands of people, millions of people who are poring over every piece of detail to extrapolate one new bit of canon that somebody can say, I found it first. And the way that they did these credits was the perfect way you do fan service. Worf's reveal was very, very subtle, but in the end credits, it was do not give in to anger, do not give in to despair. Okay, that's a Worf thing to say. That's definitely going to be Worf. The last thing that I saw this on Reddit, somebody said the last thing we're going to see is that Shaw put in a commendation for 7, and that's why you see the report from Shaw in the end credits for Commander Hansen.
Yeah. Any prediction? I guess I forgot to ask. Any prediction for how Raffi and 7 end up in this whole thing? Because they're not part of the 7, but
They go back to Raffi's place on Cestus 3. I mean, Van Nuys. I mean, whatever planet the rocks are on now.
I thought it was just the west side of Chicago.
No, those rocks are just outside of LA.
No, I was talking about. Never mind.
Okay, yeah.
Like a rough neighborhood.
My bad. No, I would love if they went back to that place and, you know, maybe Rios will be there and be like, what? And like, yes, give me more Rios.
I would love more Rios, please. Representation matters.
Representation matters, but Rios was damn cool. Damn cool. Well, Renzo, thank you for joining me for another episode of Quasi Beyond Trek podcast. It's not all 4 of us, and this is sort of a what's going to happen tomorrow feature. It's going to go live tomorrow too, so if you're listening to us, the finale of Star Trek Picard is out there right now on Paramount Plus in all the regions that it's supported in, and if it's not, we're advocating for you to get that stuff by yelling at producers and stuff like that. I don't know how much our little corner of Trek Twitter can help, but you definitely deserve to get it.
Did we predict anything right? What did we predict wrong? Were we dumb? Tell us.
Oh,
right?
dude, I expect us to be texting each other back and forth, being like, "We got this. We didn't get this. We got this. Ah!" It'll be great. It'll be great. And what does this mean for Star Trek? After Picard ends, we don't have any new Star Trek until season 2 of Strange New Worlds come out. Trailer just came out today. It also revealed that Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh will be heading up the Section 31 Now movie on Paramount Plus. So, yeah, probably can't book her for an entire TV show anymore, but you can get an hour and a half out of her.
Yeah, too expensive.
Yeah, so we're going to be in another void of Trekdom until we get to Strange New Worlds and Season 4 Lower Decks, and then Season 2 Prodigy coming out in the fall. Starfleet Academy, ETA unknown. We are in
so much content.
Yeah, we are in a new, should we say, a silver age of Star Trek right now? We had our golden age, and now we're in the silver age. Works for me.
I'm glad that they're wrapping up shows before they go stale, right? Like, don't drag out a show. Don't become It's Always Sunny or something, right? Like, give us good, and then know when your time is done.
We want more Avatar: The Last Airbender and less How I Met Your Mother.
Yes.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for tuning into Beyond Trek Podcast and for boldly going with Beyond Trek Podcast. I got it reversed. My bad. Okay.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters, to S. Tam and Nora Hickson. Thank you so much for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.